So welcome to silence. It's a bit of an oxymoron, talking about silence. For me, it's always a bit nerve-wracking. For some reason, it's easier for me to talk about tech than about my passion projects, because I guess maybe I'm more vulnerable and more in my own space, and which I want to share with you. Silence. I think before we start, I just want to start in silence, because silence is a good way to connect and to get everybody on the same page. So my talk will have also little moments of silence for you weaved in, so you can explore what it means to be silent. So why don't we start with a moment of silence? You will hear the bells. You can have your eyes closed or open. Anything we do is up to you. And when the bells go again, then we start to move on. Good. So that's a good start. Silence connects people. That's my experience over many years. Let's talk a bit quickly about me. I am Ajara. I've been doing web stuff for 20 plus years. I started off as a so-called webmaster when pages were grey with text and no images. And I'm still doing it. Now we have much more tools to play with. I'm also been a teacher from the very beginning. I worked and created a computer school for women from women in Germany. And I've been teaching now I'm still teaching at university, nearly 17 years. People from 8 to 80, I'm teaching HTML, CSS, web design. I did all the Adobe stuff and other things. So teaching and sharing what I know has always been part of my past. And the main reason why silence is so interesting to me, I'm a meditator of 30 years. I spent many years in India meditating and exploring silence. I'm also a trained therapist and did some meditation leader workshops and used to run groups and workshops in that as well. So there comes my interest in silence, and especially in silence also connected with people and how we work together. So for me, silence, the most basic and powerful way to connect to another person is to listen, just listen. So silence begins actually with listening. We constantly talk to each other, mostly we don't listen. Listening is a practice which you also need to train. Some facts about hearing, which I came across, which I find very interesting. Our inner ears are the only organ which is fully developed by birth, so we can hear already in the womb, which makes it the first sense we have is hearing. The first fully formed sense is hearing, and it's also the last sense to go. That is also in a lot of meditation practices, like the Tibetan Bardo. If somebody dies, people are reading to people dying. The Tibetan Bardo is a process where you talk to a dying person over 3 days. Even if they've left the body, means stop breathing, because the sense of hearing and help for the transformation is still there. So with hearing, we create our earliest memories of sound and of emotions. We start hearing already when we're in the womb. We hear our heartbeats, our mother heartbeats, so that creates a very big imprint. And hearing is a 24/7 job. We close our eyes, but we don't close our ears. Our ears are always open. We're always taking or are ready to take sound waves in. So we cannot just switch hearing off. So hearing is there all the time, is something we do. But hearing is not listening. Listening is a bit more, and that's what we want to explore a bit further. What is listening? Listening, there is an International Listening Association which really defined listening, what listening should be. Listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. So that is the official definition of that. Hearing was once a really important skill for our survival. We needed to hear, to listen when we were out there, when we were still hunter and gatherers and we were looking out. So hearing was more important for our survival than it is today. With the Industrial Revolution, we have an onslaught of noise now. We're living in very noisy times. You can hardly find any quiet space anymore. Listening involves all our senses. You need to see, you need to hear, you need to resonate in your environment and where you're there. So listening is something which really needs your full presence and your focus. Real listening comes from a space with no intention. There shouldn't be a thought reference. There shouldn't be a judgment. The optimal listening space comes from a very empty space. So you listen to hear, to understand what the person is saying. So we really to become a good listener, we really need to practice that. And that is something which is not in our day-to-day skill set. I think listening has become a very underrated skill. And what is it with listening? Also, it's a time-based experience, which means when you look and you see something, you see it instantly. When you listen, sound travels slower than light. Therefore, it takes longer to arrive in your ear, and the sound waves, till they are translated, take longer than what you see. So it slows us down, but also it connects us more. Like when we're walking in the park and we're walking and just concentrate on listening, focus on our ears, then we can see, we slow down, we feel suddenly more in the moment and more connected to all what is here and all what is around us. So this is more than just hearing. When you listen, you are in the moment and you are taking in what is there right now. And you're not judging it, you're not waiting for your turn to talk, you're not thinking of a good response of what you're gonna say. You're trying just to be there and understand, receive and understand the message and not actually interpret it in your own biased way. So, like we said, this needs praxis. This is not something which just comes. So a good one is a little listening practice we can do now. And it's called multidimensional listening. And I'll play a piece of music and you can just sit here. And the first one, you focus your awareness on your ears. You can have your eyes open or closed, and you focus your awareness on your ears. And then you just go further. You focus your awareness on your eyes. You listen with your eyes. And then on your heart, like you just sit there, eyes open or closed, listen with your heart. And then you can listen with your center, which is usually under your belly button. That's what in martial arts we call it hara or chi. It's 1 or 3 fingers under your belly button. That's where your hara or your center is. So what we try to do is just to give you an experience, just close your eyes and circle through these when you listen to the music. Just see what it does. So this was just an experience of listening with a different focus with a focus on different areas. You can also listen through your feet. There are exercises where you start listening through your feet. You can listen through your hands, through your fingers. So all this listening is good to show you that listening is a multidimensional thing, and you can listen with a different focus on different areas. And then you can ask yourself the question, does a different focus change your perception? Did it feel different what you were listening to? And what could you feel in your body happening when you changed the focus of your different listening? So Ursula K. Le Guin said, words are events, they do things, they change things, they transform both speaker and hearer, they feed energy back and forth and amplify it. And that's what's happening when we talk to each other, when we're sitting in a room full of people like here, I talk to you, or you sit in a meeting, you sit with your team, you sit in a briefing, you talk all day. We usually talk most of our working day with people, even if it's only like work-based, but also then we go for a lunch break and then we talk different. Maybe you go home later, then you talk to your family. So we communicate a lot all day. And all this communication does something. So it forms a connection. When I run silence workshops, I ran one last week in Edinburgh in Scotland at a conference. There were 18 people in the workshop. We were all working in silence, building a prototype, doing actual work in silence where we don't talk to each other. And it's amazing how much connection is built without talking, and how easy roles are changed within a team without talking, because usually our communication structures also influence the role and how we work on a project and how we work together. So working in silence is quite an experience. And what is amazing is how much silence connects people. On that conference later on, the next couple of days, whenever we were in the big auditorium and there was a talk, all the people from the workshop were sitting within 3 or 4 rows to each other. So, and seats. So they were unconsciously creating this connection, created them to go in the same area of the room and sit, not consciously saying, hey, I sit next to you. They were like here and there, but they all sat together in all that big group. So that's always good to see, and that's something I observed from all this silent workshop, how the people are connected afterwards with when you share silence and you experience silence together. There are different types of listening, 2 basic types of listening actually, when we go a bit more scientific again. So we have discriminative listening. That's what is an early stage listening. That's what happens in the womb. But also that's what's happening when you, for example, sit in India on a train and you don't understand the language. That means we can distinguish different sounds, like I can distinguish, oh, this is a woman talking, this is a man talking, maybe they having an argument or not, sometimes you can't tell. And the same is also when you're in the womb and the prenatal hearing, you hear voices of your mother, of your father, of partners, of whoever is around, and you already recognize different, you can distinguish between different voices. So that's what we call discriminative listening. Later on, as we grow up and where we all should end up, we come to comprehensive listening. And comprehensive listening is the understanding of messages which are communicated, including all the body language, all the facial expression, everything else, what we do, what comes with talking. So we're not only understanding words, we're also understanding more what the person says about the way they move and about the way they use their facial expressions. So these are the 2 basic types of listening. And out of these basic types, so basically either you are prenatal or you are you don't speak the language, you are in a foreign environment. Later on in your life, you learn to comprehensive listening. That's what you learn in school. And then we'll have forms of listening. These are subtypes of listening, which we do every day. So these are the 3 most common ones, which you find is informational listening. That's what you do when you want to learn. That means often you take notes, you sit there, somebody is talking, and you have your focus. It's not a very active listening. You have your focus on taking notes, and learn something. Another one is critical listening. This is when we listen to evaluate and analyze. That means more like we want to understand what the person is saying. We think about it. It's opinion building. We might ask critical questions. This is a very active form of listening because we want to say something, form an opinion, and arrive at a result, at a goal. So, and then there is the last one is emphatic or therapeutic listening. That is listen to understand feeling and emotions that we also often do when we do user research or we talk to friends or in the family, which means you are really slipping into the shoes of somebody else. You want to understand how they feel. You want to understand what they do. This is often what we do in our work or also in our life is a mix of it all. And then there are some more for example, appreciative listening, rapport listening, selective listening. These are all different types. Like appreciative listening you do when you listen to music to relax. So you always have a kind of an emotion, like you want to relax, and then you listen to music. Rapport listening is more when you want to create trust. That's when you want to, often used in marketing and in sales. You want people to trust you. Selective listening is often caused by our own bias. That means I have a very strong opinion about something, and I hear everything in that, covering and confirming my opinion. So these are different forms of listening, what we do most of our day. But for me, these are all is like a framework. That's like what we work with, is our framework. These are different kind of skill sets we got, but often the real listening, and that's where we want to come to with the silence, lies in when you come from an empty space when you listen, and not so much with these. They are all very goal-oriented, but that we come in a moment to. Most people do not listen with intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. I mean, we all know that. I know that from myself. You sit there and you wait and you think, when is he or she finished so I can say my thing? So, or we already are forming our response. There's very rarely a moment where we just sit and listen, because in most of our setups, this is not what we learned, it's not what we trained. So that's why I also call it the lost art of listening, which is kind of based in one of the things that we think up to 4 times faster than we can speak. So we can listen to 450 words a minute on average, but nobody can speak so fast. So we can only speak 175 words a minute. So what you're doing meanwhile? So you're sitting there, your mind starts to work, your mind starts to wander and thinks, oh God, is it long? Can we not go on? And your mind just gets bored. That's the basic of it. So, and then you just wish for it to be over. You think about a response, even so thinking about response is not a function of listening. And then listening really means holding space for others. It means holding a space here and for somebody to talk. And this holding space is needs to be learned and experienced and explored. And my rule is listen more than you talk. You should have an 80-20 rule. That means when you talk, 80% you should talk, you should listen, and 20% you should leave for questions. So one of the things you should do also is leave, if you talk in a conversation with somebody, leave room for questions, for you questioning it, not stating your opinion. We come in our world mostly to a place now where everybody wants to be heard and nobody wants to listen. It's like wherever we go, it's here, here, here. But just sitting and listening has become really very rare. So, when was the last time you truly listened to someone? All these questions are just inspiration for you to take a moment and ponder on that, to really think, okay, when was it? When did I just listen to somebody? There is also a whole school of thoughts which comes from Carl Rogers, who's been a therapist, and he developed the whole active listening, which is now also taught and written about as a way of listening in meetings and in work and as a skill set. But this form of active listening they are promoting is a form where you are encouraged to show your presence or your focus, your attention. So they say you should not, you should ask questions. I don't support that theory. I don't think it is good if you're listening to somebody, if you give a lot of comments or sighs or body language or nods, or you go, and especially like one of my field in work is user research. So if I sit there and I want to get insight out of my research person, I can't go, or we start to bring in an autobiographical reference, which, I know, I had the same thing. That's something we are very used to in our communication patterns, because we want to say, hey, I heard you, but I had the same thing, or I had something even worse or better or whatever. So autobiographical references as a response, nodding, raising eyebrows, sighing, because we all want to be liked. We all want to be the one who's liked. So if I sit and talk and somebody gives me all this confirmation, this body language confirmation, I feel, oh yeah, good, I'm in the good book. And that is not, it may be an authentic response or authentic talk, what I move into or information I give. So it is better to just keep it very neutral. For me, listening is just listening. You sit and you hold the space for somebody and you listen. And also you shouldn't take notes when you sit with somebody and listen, especially also in a work situation. You have somebody else taking notes, because it's very important to keep it clean and keep the attention clean, the attention space you have. So there are a couple of practices you can do which are recommended to practice your listening skills. Give 5 minutes to somebody of your choice every week, 5 minutes, and simply sit down and listen. Ask them to tell them what was your day. It can be in a private setting, it can be in a work setting. Ask your colleague, what were you working on in the last 2 days? And then just listen without any agenda. Don't react in any way, no comments or body language. Maybe there is somebody you're already thinking you should actually devote more time listening to. So just find a person where you think, I can sit down and listen 5 minutes, and you will see what happens there. Somebody in a book I wrote about listening also said, everybody really wants to be heard so much nowadays that people feel that being listened to is almost like being loved. And it's so close for most people that they can hardly separate the two. So being listened to and having the space to just be, and somebody listens, is of great value and of great connection. Another one you can do is give 5 minutes of listening to yourself. That's something we totally forget. So also do it on a weekly, when you can do it more often, it's great. Go out, sit somewhere and listen to yourself. Just take a moment, focus on yourself. You can sit in the park, you can either focus on a tree or just close your eyes, and then you just use your breath as an anchor. You can just breathe in, breathe out, and just see what happens and listen what all happens inside you. There's a lot, I bet, you can listen to inside yourself. And in arguments or discussions, also either at work or at home, stop at one point and then take some time to just describe to your opposite what you heard and what you understood. And then make sure that is how the person meant it. So you really describe the ideas and feelings of your opposite, how you listened to them, how you understood them, and don't stop until they totally agree. And then ask them to do the same for you. And that is really helpful in any long meeting about any functions or features or designs, or at arguments at home. I can tell you it is a nice tool and a nice way of bringing a different quality into the communication of either in your private life or in your work. So these are some easy listening practices. We talked about listening, silent. This is the perfect anagram. It's the same letters. And when I saw that for the first time, I was very touched, because for me that made total sense, that these two words consist of the same letters. So the nature of silence is a quiet space. And quietness is the world's fastest disappearing resource. There are now, in America, there's only now one Gordon Hampton. I talk about him a bit later. He is investigating, he's a sound engineer, and he's recording and saving natural silence, which means natural silence is in silence without human-made noise. So he goes to all places around the world and records them and saves them, because he says natural silence is on the brink of extinction. Everywhere you are in the world, you hear other noises. So the silence and the quiet is a very rare resource now. They found out that 90% of children will not experience natural silence in their lifetime now. So that means a lot. That is a lot of people who will, when they're grown up, never heard natural silence, never even be somewhere, where they hear nature, but still there's a plane somewhere, or there's a road somewhere, or there's some other human-made noise. So constant noise pollution, was how we live. I mean, also, of course, if you live in a city, is stressing the body. There are all the scientific research. You have high blood pressure, heart rates. If we can't be silent, or if our ears can't relax, then it produces constantly stress on the body. And there has been now a lot of research with natural silence. Natural silence is all silence which is with birds, with wind, with everything, but no human-made noise. And that promotes health, which means it had a positive impact on muscle relaxation and on heart rates, on blood pressure. So it's very important to seek out natural silence for us human beings, because that's how we used to live. Also, especially before Industrial Revolution, we lived in smaller communities and not so much sound impact. So this is a good way going out into nature and enjoying nature. If you want, check out Gordon Hampton. He's called the Sound Tracker on soundtracker.com. He also has a website which is called quietplanet.com. He has a website, quietparks.org, which is a foundation which is now registering parks as silent zones. And he has the 1 square inch of silent project, where he put in Utah, in the last part of the rainforest, a 1-inch red stone on one place in the forest. And this is, in America, the only place where you can't hear human-made sound. And even now, airlines rerouted their planes to not fly over there. And he created a big thing, and you have to see it. It's great, and it's a little red stone in the middle. And he records all these soundscapes, and basically he sells the soundscapes also for movies and for stuff. He's an Emmy Award-winning sound engineer whose passion is silence. And actually, I only found out about him on Sunday when I went to the virtual theater Limina in the harbor side. And there is a immersive theater where there's a movie of him doing his work and about silence. So check him out. It's an amazing work. It's really, I was totally taken away. Oh, what's happened? Oh, here we are. Good. Okay. So, question, when was the last time you listened to natural silence? Just ask yourself and take note. Another interesting thing is quiet and silence has become a value. So here you see silence, please, silence, the truth in the modern times, everybody wants silence. This is a rebranding from the Finnish tourist board in 2011. They were having meetings and trying to find how they get Finland back on the map and thought, what do we have? There's nothing really happening here. It's all quiet, till somebody clocked in. Oh, yeah, it's all quiet. That's actually really good. People want that. So basically, they created a whole brand about silence and silence, please. And then they also had a tagline like no talking but action. And they had handmade in Finnish silence. I like that. That's a really good tagline for a product. And they really went out and researched, and it was a big success. Now it's part of their whole tourism board. And they realized that one of their biggest value as a country and touristic value is that it's so quiet there. And there have been great results. So silence is something we really can get so easily comfortable with each other. But usually we are not, because when we experience silence, for example, when we're on the bus or somewhere, we are in close proximity to people which we don't know. And that usually does make us feel uneasy, because it has to do with our boundaries and that we think we are too close. Have you ever experienced that? You go into a lift, an elevator, and other people coming in, and even if they still talk, when they stand there, in the moment they come in, often it gets very quiet. So you go like, oh, And if they still talk, you feel even more awkward because you feel like you're eavesdropping. And these are moments, waiting rooms. Nobody talks in a waiting room. And public transport in the bus. Now we've got mobile phones, thank God. So everybody can look on their mobile phone. Everybody can look on their mobile phone on the public transport, which is happening. This is another little exercise of mine. I consciously not take out my mobile phone when I use public transport. So I look outside and I look at the people who are in the bus and I look out of the window. And that's fun sometimes. And another one of my little exercises is I talk once a day to somebody I don't know. So that's also something you can add to your little exploration. Just even if it's just a greeting or a hello, or when I go running to greet somebody, or to say, oh, is it hot, or whatever, something. Say something to somebody you don't know. So, yeah, when we share space as a necessity, but not out of choice, then we usually start to feel uneasy. Like the mind creates our boundaries and we feel like, oh, we might need to protect ourselves. Being in a group of people you don't really know, but like on meetups or stuff, you feel comfortable, and then you can do small talk, or you talk about a work topic or something related to what the evening is about. So then you can relax a bit. But we very rarely have any more experience where we're just silent together, where we're comfortable with being silent. On the conference I was in last week in Scotland, I loved that. They had little buttons, happy being quiet. So I had that on because I'm happy to stand with people and not talk. So that's also good to say. And then they had other ones where they said, I'd talk to anybody. And then another one was, I'm more comfortable talking second. So that means they want to be approached. So I thought that was very mindful for a conference. And happy being quiet, I thought that's a good slogan, happy being quiet, because it is a good space to be quiet and experience silence in a group. and then it doesn't get so awkward. And also I can just stand with somebody, not say something, and then you say something, but you lift off that pressure of social behaviorism. And it's very powerful also to be quiet in a room with more people and then talk again. Good. So my question, where are you silent with others and feel comfortable? So that is something you can try out and explore, being silent and feel comfortable with others. And then we also have silence when we are alone. That's what I call inner silence. So that's something I think we all should develop and explore more. It's the ability to just be quiet with yourself and feel comfortable. And the basis of that is meditation, because from that meditation, that is a silent space, you can reach out to others. So, and that is why I talk about silence and about communication and about listening. Once you practice meditation, you develop this kind of space and this emptiness where you can meet others, but you can also meet yourself. And in that space, you can be relaxed and comfortable. And it's nothing about being super esoteric, spiritual, or whatever. It's actually a very grounding and very mundane space you got in. You're just very present and in the moment. So this is a calm and a relaxed space, and you connect it to your inner resource. And that will make you also more resilient to all what storms into our life on a daily basis. So you have your inner strength and your inner resource. I can talk to you now, and at the same time I can drop in, and I'm present in myself, and I'm still present here in connection with you. So this kind of inner silence needs daily practice. So that is something you should really integrate in your life. You need to create experience of inner silence for yourself, and that's only up your own thing. You don't need to share that. And with this meditation, your listening gets a more contemplative quality. So that also means you will be easy listening, because even if you think, funnily enough, research showed that one of the biggest self-bias is that everybody thinks they are a good listener. So in general, usually also, it's really funny. We often are, oh, I'm not good enough in this or that, or I'm an imposter. We have a lot of psychological things where we put ourselves down. But when you ask people, everybody thinks they're a good listener. So that seems to be one of the, in research has shown, one of the things people are most confident about, that they're good listeners. So even if you think you are a good listener, I think you can deepen the quality of your listening with some more, creating more inner space. Silence is a key to being present. It's a key to really meet and to be in situations with people and alone. So, and to be comfortable in it. So silence is really well worth putting the effort in. And the question is, when are you silent without doing anything in your life? So just for a moment to contemplate on that. So when are you just not doing anything and you're just silent? Paul Goodman is a great author and writer. Somebody said he's the most influential man you probably never heard of. And he wrote a whole book about the different types of silence in our lives. And that is one of his quotes. There's dumb silence of slumber or apathy, the fertile silence of awareness, pasturing the soul, the silence of peaceful accord with other persons or communion with the cosmos. So also with the natural silence, Hampton said, natural silence is a think tank of the soul. I really liked that. That resonated with me, because being out in nature and being slowed down, I fall into the present moment, and then I also create a lot of more ideas, and the more, because I have space, I'm slowed down, I'm chilled, and then suddenly I'm much more productive, also creative with my ideas. So, what can you do to promote silence at work? So, how can you bring more silence into your life? You could have a silent working hour. We had that in some offices. I like that. So, I mean, if you can't have it office-wide, you have it in your pod or in your little team. You just have a silent working hour where the rest of the people in the building or on your floor or wherever know that your team has a silent hour and it's not disturbed. So, because also what we're doing often, we're trying, when I go into open plan offices, everybody sits there with their headphones. So headphones is a way to, not a way to get silence, it's just a way to cut out noise. So there are noise cancelling headphones which are muffling. There is music you listen to which constantly sends sound waves in your ears. There is never natural silence. So working with headphones or having everybody with their headphones sitting there is not really healthy for over a long period of time. So I would rather suggest that you have silent working hours so people can concentrate on doing deep work. And also, I'm obviously not crazy about open plan office. This is for me, I would die in one, because it's for me so big, so noisy. You see, even when people going make a cappuccino, if the kitchen is integrated, is so much going on. I think go back to pods, go back to not cubicles, but you can have separations. They can have glass. As designers, we also need more wall space. Most open plan offices are short of wall space, and you have to find wall space which you move around. So yeah, create more silence at work where everybody is involved. Start end meetings in silence. So just like we did in the beginning, we just ting, a moment of silence, ting at the end also. So we all start on the same wave, and we all end on the same sound wave. So you can also see it as a sound wave we're giving out. You can have silent badges for meetings. I designed my own silent badges and I give them out on my workshops. So when I work somewhere and have that on, I know that I let people know beforehand that I don't want to be talked to. I'm in silence, and I try just to be with myself. So in silence badges is good for people to make it also visible. I like to work sometimes with something like a stop exercise in meetings. So that means when we talk and talk and talk, we all know meetings go on forever, and we are losing track also of the actual topic. Everybody at any time is allowed, there's a drum or anything which makes noise in the meeting, to bang it and say stop. And then everything just stops. So it's like something Gurdjieff worked a lot with. He let people dig holes and then fill them again. He was a teacher, master a while back. And the stop exercise means just you stop at the moment and everybody's quiet and takes a moment. And only when the person who called out for the stop bangs again, we go on. And it's amazing already what happens to the voice, to the noise level, and to the quality of the meeting in the room. Establish a quiet room or a quiet corner. You need to have a space in your office where there's no sound, or where it's clear that when you go in there and work, it's quiet. Nobody will talk in there. Nobody takes any calls. Nobody makes any noise. If you can't have a quiet room because you're in an open office, you need to make a corner with a paravent or something where you feel in this space there will be silence. Also, with this stuff, we have a lot of people in meetings, what I often see, always the same people talk. Who knows that from meetings? It's the same people talk. And who knows, some people never talk. So to break up all this communication, we need to create more space for more quiet people and not always have the talking people talk. What I also like to do is talking tokens you give out before a meeting. Everybody gets 3 tokens. So if you spend them, that's it. Sorry, you can't say anything. And then you get like people getting redder and redder because they spent their 3 tokens already and they like to say something. But then suddenly there is space. And then somebody else who hasn't spent a token yet might say something. So try to think creatively to include everybody. In the silent workshop, I had 2 young developers coming to me afterwards saying it was the first time in a team exercise they didn't switch off. This is productive, creative energy we're switching off with not making space for people and inviting people who are more quiet, who don't work like us and who don't think like us. I mean, I'm a talker, as you can tell. But I also can be quiet. So you can run a silent workshop, give people an experience of what it is to work in silence together, or you ask me to do it. And question, which suggestion resonates most with you? So you can look at that and see how can you bring more silence, promote silence at your work. And start taking one thing and try to establish that. And in your life, how can you promote more silence in your life? Start your day with 5 minutes of silence. Everybody can do that. You can lie in bed, that's the best part, but you just sit up and you be silent. Just for your timer, 5 minutes, and there's no talk, no nothing, if possible. Or if there is too much action in your house already at that time, you find a quiet corner or a quiet room in your house where you can sit. Just 5 minutes to start in the morning. Be still and listen when you're out there in the bus. I like to listen to what people say. I like to listen when I walk, to the birds. If you just open and listen to, especially when you walk through parks here, even so it's noisy and cars, you can hear a lot more. So be still and listen. Do one task a day in complete silence. If it's chopping carrots, if it's making your cappuccino, if it's whatever, do one task, what is a task for you, in complete silence. And take moments to stop and listen. But also do your own stop. You walk somewhere and just stop and take a moment to take in what is around you and listen. Attend a meditative movement class, because sitting and being quiet in the beginning is really difficult. I can tell you from my own meditation practice, when I started out, I would sit down, gosh, and my head would explode. There were thousands of monkeys running around with everything and telling me this and that and the other. And I thought like, oh God, why is it so noisy here? The noise wasn't on the outside. The noise was in here. So I had to learn not give the monkeys any bananas, because the moment I look at a monkey and give him something, he's here to stay and more will come. So I really had to let them, like clouds, just come and go, all the thoughts, all the monkeys, because if you don't do anything with them, they're totally bored, they disappear. And also sitting still, for us super active people who live in an age of movement and of fastness, it is very difficult just to sit down and be quiet. So a meditative movement class, like something like Tai Chi or Qigong, where you can move and be still, is a good start. I can just say that helped me, and now I can sit just still. But in the beginning I couldn't. I could sit maybe for 2.5 minutes still, and then you get better at it. It's like running. You get better at it the longer you practice. End your day with 5 minutes of silence, and then what changes do you notice? Take that as your impulse. So, I want to finish with two things. One is a quote from Gordon Hampton, is silence is not the absence of something, but the presence of everything, which I think really sums up beautifully what silence is and what it can bring into our lives. And for the last moment, you will listen to a poem by Pablo Neruda, and I'd like you to close your eyes for this and just listen.
This is called Keeping Quiet. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of frightening ourselves with death. Now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go.
Thank you for listening.